welcome, and it's such a pleasure to be here. So I want to mention and say that this is quite an ambiguous subject heading that we're talking about, but I want to narrow it in where I want to focus, because there's so many areas where we could essentially dictate where we need to address this. My particular reference for this conversation today is talking about equipment and coffee tools in all aspects of our industry. We're talking on this topic around the Western coffee market and producing countries. And are we really supporting each other to get the best out of where we're evolving as an industry? We have such an amazing industry that is constantly evolving, constantly changing, but are we making sure that all carriages of our train moving forward are moving together? So in order to first do this, we need to take a look at our industry. And this is a very broad zoom out of how I see it. This is my perspective. And what I want to do today is have you think about the industry in your own world. But when we encompass everything, I really think that our industry today, our product innovations are increasing. They're totally incredible. Each year, new ideas come out, new topics, new areas, new ways, new processes. It's completely amazing the resources that we have and how quickly our development in our industry is evolving. We've never had smarter technology. One thing which surprised me this morning is I overheard a conversation of someone telling me about a grinder that auto-adjusts to the temperature and that to factor in when it needs to change the grind for the dosing. This used to be a barista's role, but now we have automation and technology to do this. It's completely incredible. Our product offer is crazy diverse. You're not subject to just one or two suppliers now. There's a multitude of different equipment companies, brewing companies, espresso companies, mill companies. There's so much offer on hand, and as a consumer in our industry, we have the choice and selection of so many variations and varieties. And lastly, our knowledge has never been better understood. Now, I've been a coffee roaster for the majority of my life, and I can tell you, when I started, progression was slow. There was no resources, no books, no internet, no podcasts. Now, what took me 5 years to learn, you can learn in 1 hour. The resources, the access to technology and information is outstanding. And I think it's safe to say that as our industry, we've never seen more innovation, advancements in equipment, knowledge, and coffee. But I want you to think on that, because there's a but about this. As an industry, we're doing all these amazing things. But it brings us to the next slide. Do these improvements really trickle to all areas of our industry? And what I'm really focusing on here is the producing countries. Where we are today, we're all collectively here talking about ideas. And this presentation is not to say what's right and wrong, but I've been working recently with a pop-up supply chain company called Nucleus Coffee Tools on manufacturing coffee tools. And I realized that are our tools effective? And this really made me reflect and ponder what our industry looks like. And this reflection made me ask these questions. And what I'm asking you today to do is ask your own questions, ask your own reflections, and see what that speaks to you. As an industry, are we really trickling all of our advancements to every aspect? And the three topics that I came up with and things that really stuck when I drew on this is we're focusing, and are we focusing on a Western coffee market? I'm in an area of privilege. I come from Australia. All the advancements are very easy and accessible to me. But someone in El Salvador and Guatemala or Costa Rica, are the advancements that I see daily that I take as a privilege, are they available to them? Are they affordable to them? Are they practical for their needs? The next aspect is, accessibility to our areas of coffee. Are we making tools that are practical? Are they accessible? And the last thing that I came on is the knowledge. Is this knowledge and skill set actively being passed down through our supply chain? It's very easy to jump on a podcast, read an internet thing, get a lesson from someone. But for someone in a remote area, do they also have these abilities? And if we're not making a conscious effort to connect that gap, are we leaving people behind? Next slide. And this led me to looking at these coffee tools in 4 categories, which I want to briefly go through as we talk about it. And it's accessibility, affordability, practicality, and education. To me, if we want to make a meaningful change and close that gap or stop the divide, is addressing these areas when we look to manufacture anything, whether it's a grinder, a new machine, a new mill. We really need to address these things, in my opinion, in order to improve what we're offering and making sure that it has the greatest value. So we talk about accessibility. And to me, the real problem with accessibility is when we're not manufacturing things with a specific goal in mind. We have a surplus of consumerism. There's so much offering, but if we're adding a new product to our line, it needs to have a purpose. It needs to be able to change or improve the way in which someone does something. Otherwise, it's just another. We already have so much. What we should be focusing on is what are the areas that we need something, and how can that make a change? The next is the support. Someone can access a tool, but in countries which are not connected or advanced or developed, are they going to have the support to be able to utilize that tool? If something goes wrong, can someone fix it? We need to address these ideas to make sure that any advancement that we bring in is accessible to everyone. And the last is research and development. I feel that research and development needs to incorporate a greater area of people. We need to not just do subjective or narrow-minded research and development, but be inclusive. Include technology, include professors, include data study. With this, it takes out subjectivity and really allows hard data to be shown for how we can reflectively change these products for whatever purpose they're designed for. And again, I'm talking broad spectrum. I will be a little bit more zoomed in on my specific area of need, but this is just generalization. When it comes to affordability of coffee tools, I think we really need to start considering, as manufacturers and as an industry, the geographic locations, dispensable income. Are we really able to afford these? If I can, as my salary in Australia allows me to buy something, and that's okay, that's 2 weeks, it's a bit unfortunate. Maybe that's someone's entire year's salary just to get that thing, but it's so crucial and fundamental to what they need to do. I think the investment in how we manufacture coffee tools needs to be about functionality. It shouldn't be just around the aesthetics and how nice it should be. It should be, what does that do? Primary function. When we're looking at coffee, it's an assessment of taste. A machine can look really pretty, but if it doesn't benefit taste, then what's the purpose when that's our primary goal as an industry? We're a food and beverage industry. And the last thing about affordability is that item should benefit, the benefits of that item should outweigh its investment. Whoever has that item should be seeing the value, that it doesn't matter what it costs them, because the value that this adds to their life, whether it's in productivity, sustainability, or time, is worth that investment. When it comes to practicality, I think the thing that we need to remember is not everyone is as skilled as everyone in this industry. We are all at different areas and different evolutions of our life in coffee. But a tool should be easy to use, even with limited experience. We should be able to access the benefits from that without having to be an expert in that particular field. A big one for me about practicality is scalability of that item's purpose. We really need to make sure that if we're implementing something to have a big change, that it's actually scalable. The cost of that item, even if it's incredible and the best on the market, it actually can serve the purpose that it's intended to do. And scalability comes down to affordability, its production time, and its efficiency. But scalability is something that we really need to focus in if we're bringing something for a design purpose. And the last thing is that tangible benefit. We really need to make sure that the user gets the benefit and is valuing this product and its practicality of what it can do. The last element that I wanted to address is offering a product that has a solution in terms of education. Now, we really shouldn't be needing prior insight. When it comes to roasting, for example, it's such a difficult thing to get right. that if we're offering a machine that's designed for roasting, we should be offering also solutions that allow that user to be able to get a successful roast without having the skill or knowledge needed to be able to do that, and that we can use artificial intelligence, automations, resources, everything that we're now seeing in technology to implement that to make decision process and make it clearer and less scary. And I think that you can see that through the other 2 points, which I've also addressed, that we need to make sure it's more user-friendly. So I am here today to talk specifically around sample roasting. So this is my expertise, and I want to identify the challenges that I see. It would be silly of me to come here and talk to producers and tell them how they can improve their wet mills or how they can improve their fermentation tanks. But one thing that I'm really passionate about is sample roasting. How can I add value and purpose in order to improve people's understanding and assist in manufacturing coffee tools that allow this to be done better, or processes and procedures? And I think this comes down to a discrepancy. And this is the divide that I see in sample roasting. So I'm a coffee buyer. And as a coffee buyer, we expect so much from our producers. We expect impeccable farming. We expect impeccable fermentation. We expect really amazing qualities. But when we're assessing these qualities from that farmer, we're relatively unforgiving. You know, it only takes one bad cupping for us to walk away from a purchase, which can drastically change that producer's life. And this comes to the obstacles. And I'm going to shorten the first line into one particular topic, that it takes almost an entire harvest. This can be 9 to 14 months for a producer to produce a coffee. It takes us 30 minutes to do a cupping assessment, and it takes us 2 minutes to tell that producer that that coffee's no good. But that decision on no good was a 6 to 8 minute process called sample roasting. And if that process was done better, possibly our outcome and our feedback would have been drastically different. And this is such a crucial niche thing. Why is this subjective to knowledge, skill, or benefit? This is such an integral part of our industry. For me, I wanted to make a meaningful change in this area, that it's not an area of privilege. Sample roasting is a practicality. It's a necessity. Everyone who is in the agricultural business of producing coffee should also have the ability and the luxury of their coffees being assessed in a fair and honest expression. The other thing is, the obstacles is standardization. Now, we want to be able to look at that coffee unobjectively. So roasting, as we know, is so objective. You know, our preference is in espresso, filter brewing, extraction, completely independent. But when it comes to cupping and assessment, there's protocols in place that we all commonly agree upon. We understand the process, which means that the sample roasting and its functionality is just to get a true representation of that coffee. Process, terroir, variety, farm, and country. We're not looking to improve and change it, maybe how we would change to our preference in taste, but just to get a fair assessment. I think everyone deserves that fair assessment of quality. And the last is the certainty of identification. When we identify an issue, sometimes experience doesn't allow us to identify, is it the coffee or is it the preparation? But if we can remove the preparation as being an issue from this equation, then all we're assessing is the quality, meaning that our buying decisions are a lot more clear and we're a lot more certain in what we're able to assess, purchase, and buy. And the last obstacle is knowledge and skill needed. As I said, I've been working in coffee for over 10 years. It took me a long time, 5 years, to be confident in my roasting. Now, someone who's new to farming, producing great coffee, they don't have that luxury, nor should they need to spend that invested time learning how to sample roast when they're here to do great agriculture. We as an industry need to be able to provide solutions that allow sample roasting to be done easier, more effective, and more consistent for everyone in this supply chain. So, why do I have this desire? Me, Sam Corra, from Australia, wanting to change sample roasting. Well, I'll tell you a little story. In 2021, I was involved in a project developing a sample roaster to improve only quality. We took that project international to the 2021 World of Coffee, and I supplied and helped an independent Brewers Cup competitor to his competition. Now, my goal was just to have a unit that was affordable, produce incredible coffee. That was it. And Surprise to us, our goal was well more than achieved. We ended up having that particular individual win that world championship. And I had this roaster able to win world championships and roast fantastic coffees, but I lacked a purpose. What am I going to do with this? Where does it fit into our already saturated supply chain with so many roasters? And then I took a trip to Origin. I spent 5 weeks abroad in 6 different countries. And just for fun, I put the roaster in my backpack. And this is when I realized we have the ability to make a change. This inexpensive sample roaster that can create coffee of a world-class level really changed the lives of so many people that I met along that trip. It allowed them to first see their coffee how we as coffee buyers see it. They have their regional traits and how they produce that coffee, but I have my assessment trait. They can see the same profiles that I see, and we can have that common language. It also allowed me with ease to replicate that coffee if there was an issue or a roast issue, so that 7 minutes of defining factors between whether they got a sale or whether I walked away was taken out of the equation. With certainty, I could assess that coffee. And what I realized is electric roasting to some people, and I had this the other day, is completely foreign. In some producing countries, they're not even aware that you can roast coffee with electric and heat and have it consistently profiled. And I had this yesterday. I was roasting with people and showing them how we can take the discrepancies, the inconsistencies out of roasting was completely eye-opening. And that's what's driving me to really find a solution for this market. When it comes to this, it's around a few areas of success. And for me, when developing the roaster and any coffee tools in general, we need to look at certain areas. And so identify these just so you can see the thought process behind it. So I think with anything, we need to have a dedicated team with experience, commercial experience, because we can be fantastic engineers, but also we need to understand what we're doing in this process. We need to understand the roasting, how it benefits, and what is successful in order to make a meaningful change. We need to have an awareness of what's lacking in the market. We don't need more roasters on the market, but what we need is a roaster on the market that is able to be affordable, practical, and add the education to producing countries to access. We shouldn't make it out of luxury features, items, and materials. We should be focusing on investing in the quality and the output because, as I said, we're a food and beverage industry and quality and assessment is the most important thing. We should be taking guesswork out of the equation. I'm sure if anyone here works as roasters, we all know that the biggest challenge is the unknown. Roasting is unpredictable. Every sample we get changes, whether it's from variety, terroir, process, it's so independent and so variable. But if we can take the guesswork out of it and make it more consistent, then we can take away the wastage, we can take away the indecisive ability to purchase, and we can make sure that we're looking at things more certainly. And we can do this through automizations, technologies, and having artificial intelligence come into our processes. We need to factor in the pricing point of our supply chain. What's effective? How can we work on this? And can we manufacture for cheaper? We need to maximize efficiency. So with everything, time is just as valuable as the output. We need to make sure that the scalability of our products are able to be utilized on a greater and more diverse market. We need to constantly improve and innovate our technology. Now, one thing that's amazing is we should never be stagnant as an industry. We're always evolving, and once we develop one thing now, we should constantly be evolving and looking at ways to make it better. And we need to empower users of all levels. It doesn't matter where you fit in the supply chain, everyone should have the privilege and the right to the accessibility of having the means to produce something which is so vital and important. And this leads me to my personal project, which is the link. Now, I've tried my best to incorporate all these elements into a roaster designed for Origin. This is an electric roaster that has essentially my brain through the profiling system and easy and simple navigations in order to produce that roasting. I'm not going to cover this product too much in this chat. I do have a workshop at 3 o'clock if anyone wants to go into the specifics of how. The main thing about this chat today is to hopefully get a little bit of thought, a little bit of provoking, and a little bit of an idea. I want to look at our industry as a whole. and reflect on it. Take some time to sit back, celebrate our wins, but also look how together collectively we can be a little bit better. My opinion of sample roasting is about connection. It's about linking all these areas that are challenging or tough or obstacles that we see and putting them together in a way in which we can have a more meaningful and purposeful industry, not just on roasting or sample roasting, but for everything we offer when it comes to coffee tools. The main blue pillars of affordability, technology, accessibility, and practicality. We need to address those problems. Whatever side you sit on when it comes to the industry, whether you're a producer, whether you're a coffee buyer, whether you're an exporter, or whether you're a barista, consumer, or competitor, we should all have the same luxury of being able to produce incredible coffee. And guys, we do have a short amount of time. I had to do that a lot quicker than expected, but thank you so much for attending today. If anyone does want to learn a little bit more about the developments and resources we are doing, we do have a workshop at 3 o'clock, but I really hope you have a fantastic roast forum. There's going to be some wonderful speakers, lots of education, and I think the most impressive and interesting thing about this as an industry is we don't have to be right or wrong or agree on all topics. We're here collectively to have a conversation. Let's talk about our industry. Let's reflect on our industry. Let's see, are we moving together? And if there's any areas where we're leaving a carriage behind or we're not advancing, or we need to just have a conversation between each other to better understand what the needs are, let's make those time. Let's spend these next few days collaborating with all of these wonderful people that have traveled from around the globe to make the effort to collaborate and connect. And I think that way we can move our industry forward and have it be better for everyone. And one thing I've always said is, when I leave coffee, I hope that I can leave it in a better place than what I entered. Thank you very much.